Welcome back for another episode on the Gold Room. We're bloody blessed today to have Andrew Dittmann in the studio, or Ditto, as he's commonly referred to in the industry. Thanks very much for turning up, mate.
No, thanks to be here.
Not a bloody problem. Look, before we get into it, I've just got to tell everyone that this episode is brought to you by Rush Electrical from Kalgoorlie in the Goldfields. Bloody ripper company. Josh Rushmore is an absolute legend, and if you need any work on site, give him a bloody call. If you'll find the website in the show notes.
Yep, good bloke.
Bloody ripper bloke. All right, mate. Life and the times of Andrew Dittmann, Ditto.
Yeah. So I grew up in Brisbane, and pretty early on, I sort of figured out I like my sort of maths, science sort of subjects in school, and I never really knew what I wanted to do until I sort of got to about grade 11, 12, and when I went and saw my career counsellor, they said, "Oh, you've got all the attributes of being an architect," and I said, "Oh, brilliant. Awesome.
Good money."
And so I started really heavily focusing on design, and I loved it. I have a huge passion for anything spatial. And then as I got towards grade 12, they kind of changed their tune and said, you're doing a lot of maths and physics. You should look at engineering. I said, "Oh, right, okay. What's an engineer?" So no idea, right?
I don't think most of them know either, so you wouldn't be alone.
Yeah, and so like I've come from a family where my dad was a banker, my mum was a school teacher, my sister, she's 8 years older, she's another school teacher, but she's got a master's in linguistics, so she's fluent in Chinese and also Japanese.
Awesome.
My brother's a barista, and my sister's also works in hospitality and runs a catering service. So nobody in my family knew anything about mining. So never thought I'd end up here, but took the advice of the career counsellor and said, "Oh, I'm going to get into it and have a look at this engineering thing they're talking about." So started off when I went to uni, just looking at civil engineering to start off, and then they kind of took me through this is what you're going to be doing on the day to day, and I was like, geez, I don't want to be building roads. Like, it just doesn't sound like watching concrete set. Just doesn't sound fun to me. But
standing there with a lollipop sign or 6 blokes with a shovel.
Exactly. But what I really was excited about was like bridges and cool things like that. And then there was a bit of a reality check, and they said, "Look, there's very few people that go and do that in Australia. There's not many bridges getting built on the day to day. More than likely, you have to move to Europe or whatever." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, how do I stick around Brisbane and keep living here?" And then I had a friend who called me up and said, "Oh, you should come and have a look at this course, mining." And I was like, "Oh, all right. What's that about?" And they go, "Oh, I don't know. Just it's cool. It's different." So I rocked up to an orientation week, and the first thing and what really got my attention was the blasting videos, and I think everyone that's ever seen a blast is just
Magic.
In awe, right? Yeah. So I sat down and I had to look at these blasting videos. I said, "This is awesome. How do I do this?" And they said, "Oh, you just got to sign up, mate. We need university students." I said, "Oh, wow." So this is back in 2007. So it's sort of the back end of the 2008 boom and going into that a bit of a downturn, but there was still a massive shortage for mining engineers.
Yep.
So signed up, and I actually because it was going into that downturn, I had a hard time finding any vacation work to start off with. But I stuck with it, kept doing my cafe work, working as barista, and
it's in the blood, mate.
Yeah, exactly. Still love it. I'd go back and do it today, to be honest.
Oh, really?
Just the personal connection is real cool.
Yeah, cool.
But moved into an airport job, and I was just seeing all these people going past in their FIFO gear and going, "Oh yeah, cool." And I remember I got my first start in mining. There's a guy going through the airport about 4 a.m. and I served him at the counter, and I just said, "Hey mate, I'm studying mining engineering. Do you guys need a mining engineer?" And completely naive, like, that's not how you go about a job application generally.
Might have just been an operator.
Yeah, exactly. And he was taken back and was like, he walked away. He came back about 10 minutes later and gave me a business card. And he goes,
"What?"
He goes, "Mate, that was that was absolutely like ballsy what you did there.
Wow,
He
bro,
goes,
that's cool.
And he goes, yeah, look, I love it. I love
Don't ask, you don't get.
Yeah, he goes, I love the confidence. I like your attitude. You're willing to work. If you're willing to do anything, then come on, send us your application. And
Who was the company?
Down EDI Blasting.
Cool.
So I sent the resume through, didn't hear back.
That's how it goes, mate. People keep firing them out.
I was like, oh, righto, fair enough. And so I left it and I waited 2 weeks and then I sent him another email and he goes, mate, completely forgot about it, been snowed under. Here's call this number right now, we'll get you a job. So I had a phone call from HR an hour later.
Wow.
And a job offer 2 hours later. So, yeah, started probably 2 or 3 weeks later.
That's unheard of now. It's like a 2-month, 3-month process to get to onboard people. It's
Yeah,
wild.
exactly. But they were quick on their feet and
Awesome.
they were an agile company. They were looking to grow and do all these things. So, yeah, in my second year, I got to go out and they put me on the blast crew to start off with. So I did a lot of just that manual dipping of holes and just the labouring side of things. So carrying things around the yard.
Good for the physique though, eh?
Yeah. Then loading holes and then, got to fire my first blast. And I just remember just freaking out going, oh my God, what is this? This is a big boy's dream.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's what got me hooked. And continued sort of working for them throughout my entire university degree, and they ended up sort of funding my thesis. And
Oh, wow.
yeah, so just worked out really well and gave me a really good foundation.
So you've always been a bit of an author.
No, the thesis is a different story. But yeah, bit of an author. Yeah, I've always enjoyed writing. I can't say I was the strongest writer at school because maths and physics were my subjects, but enjoyed the writing definitely. Just
Anyone who's putting a thesis together, mate.
yeah,
You know, that's a lot of time, a lot of work, a lot of effort.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of writing.
exactly right. Yeah,
And that's all before ChatGPT too.
all before chat. So yeah, it's probably complete rubbish now, but no, it was an experience. I'll tell you what. That was one of my key takeaways from university was, particularly University of Queensland. They have a really strong focus on report writing and skills around that. And it's just drummed into you. Every single assignment you do is just focused on that. So, yeah, did learn a lot, and you learn from your mistakes, right? So I made a lot of mistakes.
Everyone does, mate.
Yeah, no, definitely. So then, I guess I've always had a bit of a passion for giving back, and so did some tutoring through uni. Tried to bring the sort of second, third year uni students under my wing and help them out on assignments. I love collaborative thought process and sharing information. So
Awesome.
really like trying to give back and just share the love. So trying to be involved in different communities, anything I can do.
We'll touch on it a bit later, but you know, I guess that young mining professionals that you're a part of, that stems from probably that willingness and that want to support others in the just newcomers into the industry.
Yeah, 100%.
That's fantastic. So you were doing that back then, years ago.
Yeah, that one's an amazing group, right? So they actually started out of Canada, and they met another group which is over in London doing a very similar thing, and then they decided that, well, if we're both doing this, we may as well try and make this like a global thing, and they merged the two teams together, and then they've expanded, and I can't remember how there's like 14 chapters around the world now, and every single there's actually a global governing board, but basically we're all working on the same direction, and we're trying to give back, and so there's a philanthropic part to it. There's also a professional development side, so
Networking.
there's networking 100%, and there's also particularly in the Canadian side, there's a lot of wheeling and dealing happening through it as well. So young entrepreneurs are getting the opportunity to network with high profile people, and they're making deals happen.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Well, mate, you've had your education. Obviously, that stems from that drive within.
Yep.
You know, so you did bloody well there. You also did a little stint, 7 years, coal mining with BHP.
Yeah.
You want to go into a bit of that?
Yeah, sure.
Awesome.
Yeah, so
I know bugger all about coal mining, but we do have a co-host coming up in a couple of weeks' time with that cut his teeth in coal mining. He was an electrician, did his time in the mines over east. I want to say Port Macquarie, but it might not be. That's where he's from, Port Macquarie. But
Yep.
yeah. Anyway, go BHP. What's it like?
Yeah, look, it's so I was working out at Peak Downs mine for a fair portion of that. Peak Downs is the world best coking coal, so that is they benchmark based on Peak Downs.
Wow.
So they produce a product called the Peak Downs coking coal, which creates a premium. That one is what everyone's trying to get to essentially. So that's all the mines surrounding Peak Downs itself. So if you've ever seen Moranbah on a map, the mines in Queensland are significantly larger in scale than what you'd see in like Western Australia.
Wow.
The strike length for some of these mines are 18, 20 kilometres. Like Blackwater's sitting around 40 kilometres long.
Wow.
And so it's just the sheer scale is what makes it so remarkable. And it makes it really logistically challenging. So there's so many moving parts. There's just so many machines. You got things just happening everywhere. So they had a whole bunch of different machines. We were running drag lines, rope shovels, obviously excavators. I guess one of the cool experiences from coal is the drag lines. It's something you don't get to see in metals mining really at all. They're just a different beast. They're just so big, and for anyone that hasn't seen one, they're roughly 300 meters odd long. Their boom lengths usually sitting around 150 odd meters. They carry so much material. So each bucket load's about 110, 120 ton. Wow. And they're just beasts. Like you stand up against one and you're a little ant. It's amazing. And so that they're mining enormous amounts of material. So the way that strip mining works is it's sort of like a typewriter where you progress along the line and then you hit that little reset and you go back to the other end and you basically continue along the block that way through the strips. So the drag lines they are non-stop just digging material and they just cast from one side of it to the other and then start again. And it's almost like a majestic whale of the mine, right? Everything just moves around them.
Yeah.
You just have to get out of their way, and they're slow moving. But my God, they move.
We'll put like a little video in the episode of what it looks like. So anyone who's never done it gets to see it.
Yep, no, for sure. So yeah, we were doing all that, and then so I started out as a drill and blast engineer. Really, I guess, benefited from my time working in the crew. I actually worked on the same blast crew, so I had the respect of the crew. They knew as an engineer that I knew what the operations team were going through, cool. and that gave me the ability to sort of design around what they were doing as well. I understood what their pain points were, and highly recommend that to any sort of younger engineers. Just get some time in the field and just understand what they're going through. It's a challenge, and it's something that people sort of take for granted that they think it's an easy job. It's not.
No.
So I think they appreciated that. So I definitely made some modifications to my designs as a result. But yeah, they also opened up to me then, and they gave me pretty honest feedback around what they thought would work. And
a street cred.
Yeah, street cred. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think it was a really good experience just having starting out in the operations, moving to the design world, helping manage them, and I guess the net outcome was we saw massive productivity gains as a result. Like when I first started, we were loading approximately 120 tonne a day in explosive, and then by the end we were closer to sort of 300.
Oh, wow!
So huge productivity uplift.
Awesome.
So then, after doing that, I sort of I loved what I was doing, but I also wanted to do a bit more and understand the mining operations, and I got given an opportunity to move into a more operational role. So it was a production coordinator. So that role essentially is an overseer within the mine. They basically a field engineer that goes out and they fill the gap between a technical person and an operational person. They explain the plans to the operational people. They understand what the critical tasks are on the mine site, and they assign equipment. So, yeah, in terms of what I was doing on the day-to-day was probably managing like a 1,500 person workforce.
You were?
Yeah, we had to manage the entire mine site. So everything that was going on the mine site went through us. As the
Wow.
production coordinator. Yeah. So it was
Wow, that's awesome.
but it was one of those roles.
Stressful? Stressful?
Yeah, very
I
stressful.
can imagine, yeah.
Yeah, but it was all responsibility, not accountability. So they still had their superintendents on site that were accountable for their production and whatnot, but everything still ran through us. And so we were accountable for the overall performance. So when we first started this role, it was a brand new role when I started it. So we had to invent it. And I got sat down by the site general manager, and they said, I know you're sitting at like sort of that superintendent level in the org structure, but I want you to be my eyes and ears, my 2IC, and you need to make the best for business decisions. It doesn't matter. Everyone's got competing priorities. You need to figure out what the top priority is, and that's what you make the decision on. And we will back you every day of the week. And so it was an amazing experience to be able to. I was overruling my own manager on certain topics. Wow. Obviously, you have to have your ducks in a row.
Yeah, tread carefully.
Yeah, exactly. But just the ability to see how all the puzzle pieces came together and understand like how the mine site lives and breathes. Like you could see an issue coming from a mile away, and you'd start to react to it early. Yep. So it's a really, really cool role to, piece it all together.
What was BHP like to work for? Do you think that they invest heavily in their people? Are they forward thinking? Obviously, they're huge.
Yep.
They're a monster. Is it easy to get lost in a company like that?
Very easy to get lost, and that's also part of the reason I left as well. Was it felt like I was becoming a big fish in a small pond, and so I didn't have the ability to move fluidly throughout the organisation, or my perception of that was I didn't have the ability to move.
Yeah. Do they have a succession plan training for their staff, or how, you know?
No, I never had anything like that. I was probably a little bit too low in the org structure to really see that. They did have accelerator programs for individuals, but yeah, I don't really know how that all came about. But yeah, definitely on the day-to-day operations on the ground floor of a mine site, it didn't feel like there was really succession planning going on.
Yeah, okay.
But I think they are doing a lot of good work in trying to fix that, right? So when I left, at that point in time, there was definitely we'd just gone through a massive redundancy on the mine side as well. So we were very, very lean. But at the same time, working for BHP, they've got all the gadgets. They've got every bit of technology. They've got money to spend, and they're willing to spend it on the right projects. Awesome. So having an understanding of what's out there, that was a bit of a game changer as well. And so when you come back to a really small, say a gold mine or something, and they're still using Excel spreadsheets, and you go, oh wow, okay, then there's so much opportunity here to improve things or make things efficient.
Do you think gold miners are doing everything they can, mid-tier and below? Juniors, are they doing everything they can in the AI space or in the technology space to improve their day-to-day?
Some people are, definitely, and it depends on the company. There's definitely some forward thinkers, and it's driven from the top. It's also driven by the economics of the project. So if they're not making much profit, they don't have the ability to go spend all this money. And I guess the problem with some of the gold miners is their project life is just too small to justify it.
Yeah.
And so if you start increasing the NPV of the project, it just doesn't make it worthwhile. And so they're trying to run things bare bones. Quite often they're running with a contractor fleet or something like that. And so they don't have the ability to necessarily change a contractor's fleet either. They can put in the contract to say we want this type of equipment, but then all of a sudden the prices go up. And so it all feeds back.
Starts with the bare bones.
Yeah, exactly. So
goes up from there.
Yeah, and it's really just about scale, and this is where
look, with the gold price as it is, companies can scale.
Yeah,
and they can probably scale quickly.
Yeah, but I think what we've gone through is a period of there hasn't been a huge amount of investment through exploration. Everything seems to be in the brownfield space, and so people are expanding their existing assets outwards. but they are coming to an end of life there as well. And so they're looking to stay operating. They need to find their next asset. So they're starting to merge and acquire different companies. And so we're in a period right now where that's happening.
Yeah.
But I guess there's also been a change in the stock market, and some of it's related to interest rates, some of it's related to the, sovereign risk of Australia to a degree. Some of it's related to just the volatility of the market. But
The new president of the United States of America.
yeah,
Doing some whack shit.
all those things. But exploration has been suffering for the last 18 months. We haven't had huge amounts of mums and dads getting on board and supporting exploration projects, and so we just don't have the resources out there.
Right, so, mate, let's get into MEC.
Yep.
Tell me all about your role there. How did you get there?
Yeah, so I actually met one of the directors when I was in second year uni. So it was when I was working for Downer.
Yep.
So he was the site project manager, and I was just contracted there as one of the blast crew members. And he was looking for someone to help map out like some coal seams. Just there was a massive faulted zone, and this is back in the day where there wasn't any U-Butte technology. This is all based on like drill intercepts. So physically going through and figuring out where they'd touch coal on a paper sheet, and then entering into Excel and trying to map it. So I created just basically a intercept triangulation for him and gave him an idea where the coal seam was, and he was quite happy with that. And he was like, "That was actually really good work. You turned around quickly." And I was like, "Oh yeah, cool." Went away, didn't hear from him for a few years, and then after I graduated, I was working down with Orica, but yeah, I got tapped on the shoulder, and he said, "You willing to come back up to Queensland and come work for me?" I said, "Oh, sure. What do you do?" He goes, "I'm actually a consultant." So he brought me in as a graduate, which was I guess looking back, I got to learn a lot of things, but it was probably a bit premature in my career to be going as a consultant. And yeah, I worked for him for the first sort of 12 months, and then after that moved across to BHP and then stayed there for a bit, and then he tapped me on the shoulder again after I've got some more time, and then he said, "You want to come back? I want you to sort of be a future leader in this business." So
Awesome.
Yeah, good opportunity. And
Offered you some shares?
well, yeah, there was definitely some shares early on. There was a departure in the company, and I put my own money forward to buy it.
Nice work. Good work.
There is a share incentive scheme and whatnot that goes on, but yeah, most of the shares I own have been myself purchasing.
Awesome.
Yep.
Are you doing any annual purchase?
No.
Dividends back in?
There's dividends coming back out, but no, there's not an annual purchase option. It's just, we don't want to dilute the company too heavily.
Yep.
So
Yeah, good. So what's your role within MEC?
Yep. So my current role is General Manager of Corporate Development and Business Development.
Okay.
And that's as of 3 weeks ago. And then, prior to
Congratulations.
that, I was the General Manager of Western Australia. So.
Cool.
Yep.
Oh, cool. So national role now.
Yeah, so we brought someone else across from the East Coast there now running the Western Australian office, so the day-to-day operations. The idea was I was going to move into more of a national focus, strategic, looking at opportunities for like merger acquisition, looking at obviously bringing in more business and trying to diversify our business as well.
Beautiful. Far out. That's awesome. Mate, so you're going to be sitting here, obviously, with me and co-hosting a couple of episodes. Next up, we've got Tony Tang coming in, a professor. He's actually, I saw him a couple of weeks ago, and he was fantastic. Very smart, very well-educated man, doing a lot for university students. And the same conversation that I had with you, I've had with him about what are we doing about trying to get more people into the mining industry? What are we doing about trying to get new METs coming through? What are we trying to do about getting engineers, mining engineers coming through? Because there has been a drop-off.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on that?
Look, I think the universities are really targeting sort of that school leavers, right? Grade 12. They've started to go a little bit deeper to sort of that grade 10 level, but it's only very juvenile. Right
Where do you
now.
think they should be? Where do you think schools should be starting? You know, considering what we do here in Australia, and we do it bloody well.
Yep.
We're mining.
I think it needs to be earlier. So
Yeah.
and
What age? Like year 7 at high school?
I think we need to. It's not. We need to change the entire perception of the industry,
Okay.
and this is part of the reason I wrote the Mummy is a Minor book.
Yep, cool.
That's targeting sort of that age 5, 6 sort of age bracket. I think starting early, you get that sort of Bob the Builder field. The kids then get to understand like the basics, and they get used to seeing it around, right?
You'd think that in Western Australia, these young kids are. I know my kids. They're all, they knew you put on the bloody orange and the blue, and or packing up your bag the night before, and you're flying out early the next morning.
Yeah.
A lot of kids would already be seeing it.
Yeah.
Right. They're seeing their parents or their grandparents go away and work in the mines. So obviously that needs to be that follow-on effect at school, mum and dad, and that's probably that book that you've written is great.
I think there's a difference between seeing it and understanding it as well.
Definitely.
And so, like what those kids' TV shows do really well is they talk through the day in the life of, and so people don't really understand what the miners do. Anyone that works outside the industry probably has no clue. Some of them don't even know what an excavator is, right? So we really need to simplify the language for the general public and give them an idea of why we do what we do and why it's important. And like I said, when I was in grade 10, did not consider mining as an opportunity. I didn't even know what an engineer was. So we really need to bring that education back to the school system. And to be honest, so there's a program which is run here in WA right now called Get Into Resources, and it targets sort of grade 10 through to grade 12 students, and like it's run over at the TAFE in the CBD there, but they bring in these massive groups like 400 or 500 students over 3 days, and they do all these different activities, and it shows you sort of like what a geologist does or what a geochemist does, what a surveyor does, and it talks them through like a day in the life of. They do these cool sort of laboratory workshop type things, and then they walk away and go, oh, if you've got any questions, there's actually a whole bunch of booths downstairs. You can talk to the people that are doing the work, and they've got the people in the room, which are the right people. But what I found amazing when I participated last year was the school teachers were the ones that were like actually really interested, and they had no idea what we did. They were going, wow, if I knew this was a career path, I would have done this instead of teaching. Yeah. And this is where you go, well, like where can we get this back into the school system? Because this is, as you said, this is a major part of what Australia does. We're a primary producer. We need to get this back earlier, and I think they need to teach this probably. I don't think they need to understand the economics or anything like that. They just need to understand what we do. And it probably needs to start around sort of grade 6, grade 7, start preparing from that grade 10 transition where they start to think what their future looks like.
Yeah. I've always thought that about, the economics of, they should be teaching accounting. They should be teaching, kids shouldn't just finish school and then go, I'm going to get a credit card and then just be financially ruined, or I'm going to go tick up a car. They should be understanding about money, so unless you're studying economics or accounting at school, you're not really going to be set for the real world. What do you think the TAFEs and the unis are doing now, or what could they be doing better?
Yeah, and well, when I went through there actually was like a stock market course, and they taught you about trading and understanding, I guess, the decisions you make and what you're looking for in terms of financials, the fundamentals, the TA, the FA. Like, it was actually a pretty cool course. Yep. So, but that was a university. At TAFE, I can't really comment, but what they are doing well is they are trying to bridge the gap with industry, and so they're trying to bring in that real world experience. So I see TAFE is very much focused on. It's always been focused on the blue collar, but they're starting to see some of those things like surveying starting to flow through to TAFE, which is good. I think there's even potential for some mining engineering associate sort of degrees to go through a TAFE system. Anyone who's sort of in-field coordinator, a great example. But yeah, as you get more technical, you definitely probably need to move towards a university degree. So the universities typically focus sort of 20 years out, right? So then they're not focused on today, they're focused on what the future looks like, and they're trying to grow the next generation of whatever that industry needs. So they're focused on things like your AI, they're focused on your anything which is related to like mechatronics and all that type of stuff. So that they're expecting the industry to move towards either like a robotic sort of function or whatever it is, machine, like vending machine. That's what they're moving towards. So they're thinking well in advance of what we're doing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yep.
How do you think we make the industry more appealing to women and other unrepresented groups?
Yep. I think, well, for one thing, I think the industry is starting to move that way, and a lot of it is just education. Like I said, people aren't aware of these as career options in the first place.
I keep hearing that. It's wild.
Yeah, and so they're doing the right thing in terms of bringing people in from other industries. They're cross-skilling people. They might not necessarily come into the role that they're like an operational role or anything just yet. They might start in a technology role or an accounting role, but then they're doing a whole bunch of that cross-training and saying, do you want to take a secondment into this operations space? And so they are starting to get that skill transfer happening. It's going to take a lot of time. There's 30 years of people mining and mining exactly the way they've always done it. And then they've got the people that are coming in new and changing things, and there's always some resistance there. So,
Oh, for sure. But I mean, the state of mining today, what we've seen in the last 30 or 40 years, and we'll see that dramatic change in the next 10,
Massively.
probably in the next 5.
Yeah.
You know, with technology and the rise of AI, and companies wanting to get on board and use it, I just think far out, we're going to see some wild changes.
Yeah.
You know, I guess look at the coal face, they're still going to be mining that same way. They're still going to be blowing it up. They're still going to be using excavators. They're still going to be using trucks. The change will be whether it be
might
the
not
fuel,
necessarily be people,
exactly, you know, or the fuel that they're using.
Correct.
You know, so we're going to see some amazing changes.
So that is an attractive piece. Is if they do go to like a fully automated mine site, then the demand to be remote is not going to be as high, and so you have more Perth-based roles, or they call it like a central hub. You could operate out of a central hub. Yep. And so having the ability for people to be close to their families obviously makes a lot of sense for people to be more inclusive and support it. So
yeah, that's beautiful. Yep. Mate, well, I've asked one question from this because we've covered some ground. We've covered heaps of ground, but I'd left most of the questions because when you sit down with, when you come back and sit down with me and Tony, or we sit down with Tony, we'll be able to ask heaps of these questions about, you know, to a university professor, someone who's going to be able to give us an insight into where the young minds are right now and what we need to do, whether it be mining companies that need to be a bit more involved, even the juniors, even the mid-tier mining should be, and they're doing a great job. What else can they be doing? I think these are the questions that I want to ask him. And how far does the government get involved? And I know that was something that you were quite keen to talk about. But I think by us asking him, he's on that government sector. So it'll be a ripper question.
Yeah, I'm excited by that as well because I'm in the industry. I obviously have my opinion on things, and probably don't understand exactly what they have to go through as well. So they might have some funding issues. Whatever it is, I think it's going to be an interesting conversation.
Most definitely. Well, mate, thanks very much for coming in, spending the time with us. We'll get you back in a couple of days when you don't mind, and I'll have a bloody Gold Room shirt ready and waiting for you, mate.
Good
You'll
man.
be sitting right here next to me.
Can't wait.
Beautiful. All right, guys, thanks very much for tuning in to another episode of the Gold Room. Hope you liked bloody Ditto's interview. Leave some comments. I'm sure that we can get him back to answer them, or jump on his LinkedIn and tell him that how much you liked this episode. Thanks very much. Cheers.